Now let's talk with conservative Generation Z contributor for Turning Point USA, Morgonn McMichael. Morgonn, welcome. 28 states receive a D or an F grade for parental involvement in their child's school. Is this another reason parents are rising up and calling for educational improvements?
Absolutely. There needs to be improvement in our educational system and also normalizing school choice. Across the country, we are seeing parents detached from their child's learning, whether that is they have parents that are working two jobs and they're not actually being able to dedicate to their children, but also the normalization of the iPad and the social media culture at such a young age is being a hindrance to these child's education. On top of that, it's opening the floodgates and the doors to the left being able to swoop into our education and really just form it to what they want a virtue signal in the classrooms. So I am very much pro homeschooling, church schooling, or any schooling outside of the public education system.
Okay. I want you to listen to a comment from a fellow Turning Point friend on globalism and American leaders. Here it is.
But there is something wrong when people are completely checked out of our political system and our elites are laughing in our faces. That's what's happening here. They're selling out you, they're selling out your family, and they're selling out your children.
Okay, so Morgonn, how out of touch do you think Americans are to what Joe Biden and the Democrats are up to in selling out our country to global interests rather than putting America first?
Completely. We are being sold out. We are pawns in this country, whether people believe it or not. One thing really interesting that Jack mentions is globalism, and it's so true. There are elites out there who are controlling everything that we do. Turning Point USA is actually going to be in Davos, Switzerland. I will be there to cover the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, globalism coming this next week, which is really exciting. But one thing that Americans don't pay attention to is what is going on in the world and instead focusing on themselves. And that's a problem in our generation, especially, is that Gen Z has this individualism problem where it's all about me and thinking about themselves instead of the impact around them.
Okay, I would love to hear your report when you get back from that conference in Switzerland. Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas says the border is secure. I don't know if you knew that. House Republicans say he should be impeached. Now, you're a Texan. What do you believe about our southern border and Secretary Mayorkas working on it?
It's absolutely not a safe border. I, from Texas, have seen El Paso, especially this past week when Joe Biden went and visited the border. It was a completely staged attempt to try and paint the border picture as a pretty painting that it isn't. So we also saw that at churches, we had a reporter there, that Title 42 being under the law right now, that there are illegal immigrants having refuge and seeking asylum at churches and not being able to be deported or being processed. Even. So one thing that we're seeing at this border is Greg Abbott just filed under Article 1, Section 10, I believe, of the Constitution, that we are under an invasion. Our border is not secure. That is a fact. And everything that we have seen is political theater from this past week.
Okay, you spend a lot of time promoting freedom of speech, religious liberty, and liberty of government at college campuses. What kind of reception do you get from today's students?
The most virtue signaling answers I have ever heard. It is the regurgitation of talking points, and it is plaguing our entire college education system. I will simply ask students the simple question of, if there was something you would change about the Constitution, what would you change? And widely the answers are something like changing the pronouns, adding trans ideologies in the Constitution. It is absolute madness, and every time I am on college campuses, no matter how conservative the campus may be, we get some of the most radical answers.
Okay, now you recently traveled to Israel and got baptized in the Jordan River. Tell us about the experience.
It was the most incredible experience I have ever had, especially through Turning Point USA, being able to visit the Holy Land and experience real biblical culture. It was like walking through the Bible, and there was something just so special about being baptized in the Jordan River. There's really nothing like it. My number one thing is, if you can, go to Israel, see the Mount of Olives, see the Garden of Gethsemane, go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It is incredible.
Did it live up to the talking points you hear negatively about Israel? Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Every single anti-Israel rhetoric you've ever heard immediately debunked.
Okay. Morgonn McMichael, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.